Good evening, everyone. It's Dr.SHIVA Ayyadurai. Many of you know I've been a little bit semi-absent on social media. I've been posting some videos, but I've been very, very busy really filing what I call the opposition to the complaint to dismiss from MERRICK GARLAND and our DC Board of Elections, because as many of you know, we filed a historic lawsuit in June 2023 to really bring to the forefront the issue that it is absolutely illegal to discriminate between a naturalized citizen and a natural born citizen. We filed that lawsuit on June of 2023, about 60 days after I began my election for President of the United States. And typically when you file a lawsuit like this, you wait. What is normal is that the defendants in this lawsuit is MERRICK GARLAND, the Attorney General of the United States, and the DC Board of, the District of Columbia's Board of Elections Chairman, Gary Thompson, because that's where we're filing it in DC. They typically will file a motion to dismiss. We received their motions to dismiss about a couple of weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then we have to file by March 22nd, which we did. So we filed, frankly, a couple of days ahead of time. So I also have Paul Clark. As some of you know, Paul Clark is one of the leading, if not the constitutional attorney on the subject. And Paul has argued very, very articulately that it is unconstitutional to prevent a naturalized citizen from becoming and running for president. It violates due process. So Paul, good to have you. And I want to thank Paul because he's very busy and he took a little bit of his time to come on today. So Paul, what I thought we would do for the audience, again, a lot of what we do is to really educate people. I thought I would take a step back and take about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes to really educate people on what, how we're arguing our lawsuit. And then perhaps you can take a few moments to tell us what you think of the, strength of our arguments are.
Sure.
And educate people. Does that sound cool?
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah. So everyone, so I literally have our opposition to people who have never been through the legal process. You file your complaint, you're the plaintiff. That's the person who's filing the complaint. That's me, Dr.SHIVA Ayyadurai, a bona fide candidate for President of the United States. And I'm filing it against the defendants, and there are two defendants here. MERRICK GARLAND, who's the Attorney General of the United States, who's really the chief law enforcement officer. And his job is to make sure that, the laws are enforced, right? People don't violate civil rights, election statutes, etc. So he was one of our defendants, and we're filing it in Washington, D.C. MERRICK GARLAND's right there. But we also asked the courts that we knew that some states, including the District of Columbia, would attempt to prevent us from getting on the ballot. Every state has different rules about how many signatures you need to collect to get on the ballot, how many electors. That's all fine. And we're willing to comply with that, obviously, as long as they're reasonable. And as many of you know, we have about 100,000 plus volunteers all over the United States. We have a campaign apparatus. We have a great website. We have infrastructure. We do a lot of advertising, offline, online. I do all these videos, and all of this is a powerful movement behind me, the true bona fide presidential candidate who's a naturalized citizen, who's demanding that you cannot have second-class citizens in the United States. It's a very, very important aspect of being American. So as a part of that, we filed our lawsuit for declaratory injunctive relief. What that means is we want the courts to direct MERRICK GARLAND and the DC Board of Electors, or the chairman of the District of Columbia, to make sure that they, don't prevent us from getting on the ballot in MERRICK GARLAND, to tell all the secretaries of states, hey, Dr. Shiva is a naturalized citizen, has a right to be on the ballot, and you can't prevent it, period. And that's called declaratory and injunctive relief. So we filed that, and then we got them obviously trying to dismiss us. Now, fascinating is, Paul, as I shared with you, the way they came to dismiss us is they said, I am not a candidate. Mm-hmm. All right. And I want to share with people the lies that they've said. And Paul will share with us how, people lie and the courts sometimes let them get away with it. But I will share with you a brief synopsis of their argument and our argument. So here is the thing. And by the way, we didn't use, a lawyer to write this. I wrote this myself. And what you see here, it says the plaintiff's opposition to motion to dismiss. It says the plaintiff, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, a bona fide candidate for president of the United States, respectfully submits this opposition. And it says the court must deny defendant's motion to dismiss since defendant's arguments are premised on 4 false misrepresentations, one of which is a bold-faced lie for which this court must sanction the defendant's attorney. The defendant's attorney, Gary Thompson's attorney, is the Attorney General of the District of Columbia, and you'll see why I'm saying that. So I begin with the defendant's big lie. In their brief to dismiss, Paul, they said the candidacy, plaintiff, which is me, is no more than theoretical, end quote. And plaintiff has not taken any steps to support his purported candidacy for president, such as assembling a campaign apparatus, engaging in political advertising, creating a campaign website, or completing any formal documentation that is required to run for the office. Very briefly, you take a few keystrokes on the internet and you'll find my website. And these guys have lied to the court. This is a big lie that we don't even have a website. We've had this for over nearly a year now. And, you can look up on the internet. So as I said here, I said it's hard for the plaintiff and for this court to believe that in the year 2024, defendant Gary Thompson and his attorneys are incapable of using the internet to find this website. And then we produced a detailed Exhibit A, 148-page detailed document for everyone to view. It shows what a big lie this is to claim that we're not a candidate. And I'll just bring that up for everyone briefly, Paul, just to let people know the extent of work our volunteers and I all did to put this together. It's been nonstop for the last week. But let me bring this up, and you'll see that this is Exhibit A. Okay, and Exhibit A. There's a 45-page limit, so we have to throw all this in exhibit. And you can see this is the exhibit, which has, hey, we have a website. Look, we launched our campaign, Your Honor, on April 19, 2023. There's an invitation to the event we held. There's the RSVP notice. There's the talk I gave. There's a website again. There's our campaign video that we produced. There's our volunteers who supported us. There's the flyers for our political advertising. Millions of these have been passed out all over the United States. We have campaign stickers, bumper stickers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The news covered it. People compared me to Nikki Haley, right? What's that? Yeah, sorry. Well, they said from her to me, right? But you can see, we're everywhere, right? And here's our FEC filings, our FEC reports. And then most importantly, they said we weren't filed in any state, okay? No state had a record of us, okay, at all. And you can see right here, here's in every state, all of these states we filed. You notice that in 2 of the states, we've already gotten enough signatures to get on the ballot, Idaho and Utah. And all of these states we're collecting signatures because you can start to collect these 11 states. We have some paperwork to fill out, which we've done, but we need to get our electors first. And in these states, we've also had to submit paperwork. And here are those paperwork. So they said we haven't filed anything in any state. Paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. We've been all over this. Every state we're in compliance based on the states that need it. Florida, here's them saying. So here's all of our paperwork, Paul, that we filed. So these guys have bold-faced lied to the court. And interestingly enough, the District of Columbia, they have no paperwork yet to file. But it is the District of Columbia, Paul, who said in their sworn affidavit, they've said that, oh, Dr. Shiva doesn't show up in our ballot. He has no standing. Go away, okay? Well, you can't even, an unaffiliated candidate can't even get the paperwork to file. So they've made bold-faced lies. But the key argument that we've made is the following. And after this, I want to, the key arguments we've made, because when you file a case, you have to argue, why you should win the case, right? Or why they should not dismiss it. So let me share with you the key arguments. Paul, you saw that Exhibit D, right? Everyone saw the exhibit or no?
Yes. The one you just showed, right?
Yeah. So now I'm going to go back to the lawsuit, and I just want to share with everyone is this a lawsuit? Yeah. So what I want to share with everyone, so we have all this data, all the, it's a very detailed 45-page analysis, okay? And we'll put it up for everyone to read. And the argument we made was 4 points. First of all, we bring up the congressional authority over presidential qualifications. Bottom line is this: what this says is that the framers of the Constitution always wanted we the people, and Congress is the only body that can qualify or disqualify a presidential candidate for access to the ballot. This was unequivocally showed in the 9-0 ruling on March 4, 2024 in Trump versus Anderson, where in Colorado, they were trying to throw Trump off the ballot, saying that he was disqualified because of the Insurrection Act. Even in that condition, the Supreme Court ruled, doesn't matter what you think, right? You cannot throw a bona fide presidential candidate off the ballot, notwithstanding he's met all the local state reasonable requirements, electors and nomination signatures. And that is the same situation we're in. And so that's the first argument. Only Congress can decide who can be on or off the ballot, number one. The second thing is they keep talking about Hassan in their dismissal. Oh, there was this guy Hassan, who was a naturalized candidate. He tried to get on in 2012 and he was denied. Well, Hassan was not a bona fide candidate. I agree with the defendants on this. He was just sort of in theory doing this. We're actually a bona fide candidate, hundreds of thousands of volunteers. We have a website. We're out there gathering signatures. We're a movement. We're a force. We're not just something on paper. All right. So that's the other argument we made. The second point we showed is that equal protection under the law. Maybe people don't understand. We don't have two-class citizens in the United States. As Paul pointed out to me, which was very important, a case that he brought to me, it's Schneider versus Rusk, which was unequivocal and explicit. And that Paul wrote this up in his very, very seminal brief, that this should end, that you cannot discriminate between a naturalized citizen and natural-born citizen. So it's a Supreme Court ruling, Schneider versus Rusk. Bottom line, it's discriminatory to say that a naturalized citizen is not equal to a natural-born citizen. And some people may say, oh, but Shiva, be happy. That's only in the case if we want to run for president. That too is not allowed according to the Equal Protection Clause, which was applied to the Fifth and in the 5th and 14th Amendments, which we'll review shortly. So that's the second piece. And finally, they said, hey, go away. You're not under any major injury. Nothing's going to happen. This is just theory. Well, the reality is, in the District of Columbia, in the motion to dismiss, Gary Thompson has explicitly said, we're going to throw you off the ballot. Okay. So that's an imminent danger given, the entire election is only less than 210 days, and that's going to happen in 90 days. So that is imminent. The other thing is, in Wyoming, we have been already denied, already been discriminated against illegally. And that's right here. The Wyoming Secretary of State won't even give me the papers. I am not a second-class citizen. And then finally in Utah, even though we're on the ballot, we got all the signatures to get on the ballot. Now they want me to sign something else saying, oh, you have to be a natural-born citizen. So the injury is real, the harm is imminent, and the government must act. I'm going to end there so we can have a discussion with Paul over the next 15 minutes. So Paul, that's the arguments I've made. Number one, the Supreme Court has unequivocally ruled that the only organ that can discriminate against a bona fide candidate for president is Congress, period. And
right.
And that second is, I'm not a second-class citizen. In India, I remember that I was not allowed to go to my friend's house because he was a Brahmin. Well, I don't care. I should not be not allowed to not go somewhere. That this is only preserved for quote unquote natural born citizens, which is a term that no one defined, but I have to be over here in the outhouse in this case.
Yes.
That's not allowed. It's discrimination, and it's anti-American. And the third thing is that this injury is real. We're actually running a campaign. It's not theoretical like Cenk Uygur was doing or Hassan was doing. They can say Hassan, 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 and pray to Hassan all day they want, but that is not our case. We are on the same stature as Trump. Go ahead, Paul. What do you think about where we're going with this?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. So, again, I'll try to take the 3 points one at a time. So first of all, of course, you have filed for declaratory judgment. So declaratory judgment, and this is something you didn't cover as much. So just so
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Right. So, declaratory judgment is something that you file when you say, I want to do something, and I know they're not going to let me do it. So I don't want to do it and, get arrested, or I don't want to waste my time doing it and then getting rejected. So before you do it, you ask the court, I want you to give me a declaration, a declaratory judgment that I can do this thing that I think I can do when someone is going to tell me I can't. So this is really the archetypical, the paradigmatic time when you need declaratory judgment. So it's never an objection to declaratory judgment that, well, it's too early. But in any event, I mean, even if you hadn't done all the stuff that you clearly have done, you could still ask for declaratory judgment. And I don't think that Hassan had asked.
Well, I think, Paul, I think what's interesting, I bring this out in the case that Justice Gorsuch, who's on the Supreme Court, 12 years ago, he was the circuit court judge in Hassan versus Colorado and the 10th Circuit, the United States 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. And in that situation, he said, well, the states have a lot of leeway. They can do what they want. And he authored the opinion against Hassan that the states could disqualify. 12 years later, he's defending Trump's right to be on the ballot in that 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. Well, what's the difference? This is why I think it's important that I argued I'm actually a bona fide candidate. And I think, Paul, that the founders of the United States were such enlightened people on some level that they recognize that they may have even made something wrong in the Constitution. So if something comes bottoms up, the states, by and large, cannot dictate to the federal government how things are supposed to be. They should let that natural process take place, which is what I think we also call the political process. So if millions of Americans want me on the ballot, they put me on the ballot, let that process go. If I get elected president of the United States, then Congress, by a 2/3 group, can get together and say, no, we still agree he's disqualified. But they can't stop the natural process of the American people from below building up these bottoms-up movements.
Right. So two important points. So one is the question, could Congress say that you or someone else is not qualified? Now, the problem is, if Congress says that, there's no recourse. I mean, I would argue that Congress must follow the law. Congress must follow the Constitution like every other body. The problem is some of these things basically have no real recourse. For instance, one obvious example was, when President Biden appointed Justice Brown to be a Supreme Court justice, he told the whole world he would only appoint a black woman to be Supreme Court justice. Now that's clearly unconstitutional, illegal discrimination. You can't appoint or refuse to appoint a person based upon the color of their skin. But of course, what are you going to do about it? I mean, it's essentially the case where it's kind of like, okay, it's illegal, it's wrong, it's immoral, it's unconstitutional, but there's no real recourse. I mean, you can't sue Biden and say Brown is illegitimate. So anyway, I would say, so I think your point is right. And again, this goes back to the Trump versus Anderson case, but the political question. But again, the political question means it's left up to the political branches, in this case, Congress, of course, but there's no judicial oversight over political questions. So in other words, it means it's left up to Congress to make the decision. And if Congress, as you say, if Congress says yes or Congress says no, then that's the end of it. No one is able to review it. But I think you're right it's hard for me to imagine. Let's say that you get the requisite number of votes and, you go to Washington to count the votes. I would be shocked. I mean, I guess nothing should shock us anymore, I suppose, because things have gotten so crazy in this country. But I would be shocked if Congress would say, no, never mind. The people want him, but, we don't care.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think as I put into the brief, I said, the framers of the Constitution had this concept that Congress was the representative body of we the people.
Right.
So if you go through this political process, and the states, can impose some level of requirements, some reasonable number of signatures and electors. And even there, you'll find out that the other candidates, like Booby effing Kennedy, as I call him, goes and hires signature vendors.
Right.
He doesn't even follow the political process. It's all institutionalized, quote unquote, democracy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we actually are getting on the ballot in the rain and snow and sleet. Our volunteers are getting out there collecting signatures. That means people want me on the ballot.
Right.
And we're following the state rules, but the states, according to the March 24, 2024, 9-0 unanimous Supreme Court ruling, do not have the right to disqualify me.
Right. So let me address that decision as well, because I think that is the most recent and important issue, particularly, again, going back to Hassan, which was 12 years ago. As I read the Trump decision, they're very clear. They say election of a president is a matter of importance to all Americans in all the states. So we can't allow one or two states or individual states to throw a monkey wrench into the works. So if one state were to disqualify a candidate like they want to do with Trump, or again, whether you're disqualified or not qualified or unqualified, it all amounts to the same thing. But if one state were to say to a candidate, you are disqualified, that affects the whole country. But one state cannot dictate policy to the whole country. And so that's why the Supreme Court said by 9-0 that this has to be left up to Congress, because Congress is the representatives of the country as a whole. And therefore, because it's an issue that affects the country as a whole, it has to be left up to Congress, not to some individual state, moreover, not to an individual person. One person in the state, the Secretary of State or whoever it is on the state level, who decides to throw someone off the ballot, or not allow them on the ballot, whichever the case may be. But again, that is far too much power to put into the hands of one person or one state. So that's why the Supreme Court said this has to be decided on the congressional level. It can't be decided anywhere. And so again, I think you're absolutely right. For even for a judge to come along, or a Secretary of State or a governor, whatever it is, and decide that they are going to make this decision to keep you off the ballot, it's clearly inappropriate. Again, this is the political decision that the people as a whole and or the representatives should be making, not some unelected bureaucrat, or even a judge, even a state or a federal judge should not be.
Yeah, Paul. What's interesting is in the ruling, I'm reading something, and everyone should go read that Supreme Court ruling. It's very, very readable and accessible. But they make the point that the founders did not want a patchwork, right? To your point, some states putting people on the ballot and some states not, because the framers wanted a direct link between the national government and the people. So the president is ultimately the representative. He represents all the people. That's what they said in the ruling.
Yes.
So you cannot, and the states, yes, the states have their rights, but they can't be the ones adjudicating and disqualifying this representative of the people. They can. The ruling said they have the right to disqualify state officials. Between their own states.
Right, of course, the state official only affects the state, but the president affects everyone.
Exactly.
That's a big difference.
Right. So our argument was, in many ways, the Trump versus Anderson ruling was very fortunate for us, because it lays it very clear. You can't disqualify. Now the issue is, are they going to treat me different than Trump? Trump was disqualified because he violated a provision in the Constitution, Colorado said, which is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, right? Well, Wyoming is saying that we're violating Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. A different, they're imposing a different.
Again, whether you call it disqualification or unqualification, again, you call it whatever you want, it amounts to the same thing. They're saying that certain candidates cannot be on the ballot, or certain candidates cannot run for office. And again, I don't think it matters. Again, you could say we're disqualifying you, or we're saying you're unqualified, or you're not qualified. It all amounts to the same thing. And again, because this is an issue of national importance, Has to be left up to Congress. But again, to get back to your other point, if you want to talk about that, well, before we run out of time, you're absolutely right. In the United States, we don't have second-class citizens. We don't have one, first class and second class. And like, well, if you're, if you were born somewhere else, okay, maybe, you have become a citizen, but we're going to treat you as a second-class citizen. It doesn't work that way. In fact, there's actually a very interesting case today that you probably haven't heard about yet, because the Supreme Court just issued it today, involving this sort of very same issue. Because there was this guy, Feker, who was a naturalized U.S. citizen. He was born overseas, I think somewhere in the Middle East. I guess he was in, I think it was in Eritrea. But anyway, I think he was born in Eritrea, if I remember correctly. And he became a naturalized citizen. And then he flew to Africa. And the United States wouldn't let him back in the country. They put him on a no-fly list and said he can't fly back to the United States. Now, it was clearly they were discriminating against him in part, I think, because he was a naturalized citizen. Now, the Supreme Court didn't get into that. The Supreme Court today, again, very good decision, 9-0. The only issue the Supreme Court addressed today was whether he could sue the government. So the government said, you can't sue us. If we put you on a no-fly zone, we can put you anybody we want on a no-fly zone, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just a purely discretionary decision. We put anybody we want on a no-fly zone, and tough luck to you. That's our decision. You have no recourse. And he tried to sue the government, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And again, the only issue they decided today was they said, of course you can sue the government if you're put on a no-fly zone. So anyway, of course, when you become president, I'm confident you're going to abolish these ridiculous no-fly lists. I mean, they're completely unconstitutional. Just some bureaucrat somewhere says you're on a no-fly list. You can't fly on any plane anywhere.
You're bringing up this. Look at this. I mean, this is some bureaucrat.
Yeah, exactly.
Some bureaucrat writes me this letter saying that I will not even be given the nomination papers because he heard somewhere that I may not be a natural born citizen. And this guy right here, CJ Young, some director of the election divisions, he has one individual is making an arbitrary decision on a presidential election. Think about that.
Right.
That's precisely what you're talking about, Paul.
Yes, exactly. In the United States, we do not have second-class citizens. We don't discriminate against people because of where they were born. That should be obvious. I mean, who could seriously contest that? You were born someplace else, we're going to treat you as a second-class citizen. That can't possibly be the way the system is supposed to work. So whether it's a no-fly zone or a no-fly list or running for office, it's the same point. And again,
so Paul, let me ask you a question. So this is so obvious in many ways, right? We've had the 14th Amendment. We've had all these cases, right, where multiple court rulings have said you cannot distinguish, you cannot discriminate. Yet you have the Attorney General of the District of Columbia, first of all, bold-faced lying, saying that we're not a campaign, it's theoretical.
I know.
And still bringing up the fact that I'm not a natural-born citizen and they can invoke that, it can throw me off. How do these guys, what kind of brain thinks like this? From a legal perspective, I'm saying so egregious to say you can type on the internet, you can find our website, to say we don't even have a campaign website. So what's going on are they?
Well, the first thing, of course, is the government is never sanctioned by the courts. They can say the most ridiculous things, and we're the government, so you can't sanction us. I mean, they can, but they never do. And I've seen this repeatedly. I mean, whether it's the federal government or the state government, they get away with murder. They can put the most ridiculous things in their briefs, and they're never sanctioned. So there's no repercussions, And again, it's the same thing with these other things. These bureaucrats, there's never any repercussions. They're never going to have to face the music. They're never going to have to, pay a nickel out of their own pocket. They're never going to have to, go before the public and explain their decision.
I mean, look at the lie here, Paul.
I know. There's no question. I agree. There's no question. It's outrageous. These people just make up whatever they think is convenient. But again, you say, what's the mentality? I think this is the bureaucracy. These faceless bureaucrats. They can do what they want without repercussions. This goes back to the famous myth of the Ring of Gyges that Plato tells, right, in the 4th century. And he says, imagine you had a magic ring, you could do whatever you wanted without fear of being caught, without fear of any repercussions. And he says, of course, even a good person would become corrupted, because if you can do whatever you want without fear of repercussions, that would corrupt even the best of men. And that's what we have, unfortunately. You give these bureaucrats all the power in the world without repercussions, and they go off and they do what they want, and they don't care who they hurt, whose lives are affected. So I think that's their mentality. They just don't care. And that's why you have to have accountability, and we have to have people being able to run for office and bring these issues to the public and try and find some accountability for these people.
Well, Paul, the only way to get that accountability, in my view, is you have to build bottoms-up movements.
Right.
Because to look to the swarm, I did this video called The Swarm, which really explains all of this. To look to them to be our saviors is never going to happen.
I know.
So that's why I think our campaign is quite unique, because it's not a Hassan campaign. It's not anything else. We actually are running for office. We actually have volunteers. We actually have people sweating it. And these are all working people, have full-time jobs. And they go out in the rain and the snow or wherever to spend their time helping us trying to get on the ballot. So I think we have them in a very interesting situation, because you have that March 4th ruling of the Supreme Court. And we have the fact that we actually have a bona fide campaign. It's not just theoretical, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, sitting there pondering, oh, can I run or not? Too bad I can't run, right? That's just pondering about it. It's a very different situation when we can say, go to this state, go to this state. And, people go to our brief. What's fascinating, Paul, is that you will actually find in the brief, the actual evidence, the evidence of our people actually out there. And as I know you have to go, but I just want to share with people, one of the things we included in our brief, Paul, was actual photographs, okay, from people all over the country who are actually out there campaigning for us. Right. And this makes it so wonderfully easy for people to understand the level of nonsense. I don't know if you can see this, Paul. Can you see this?
Yes.
So this is Alabama, right? This is over in Alaska. Okay. This is in Arizona. This is in Arkansas. All right. These are people out there, California, out there campaigning for us. This is not some nonsense Hassan theoretical campaign. These are hardworking people who are out there. I mean, this guy's got this huge sign he makes. Okay. Martinez, and he takes it out everywhere. It's a big billboard that he takes out, right? Yep. These are people making up their own signs, on his motorcycle. This is all over the country. That's Delaware. This is Florida. And these are hardworking people who are, there's a woman going door to door in Georgia getting his signatures, So this is and this is a guy who actually took a boat in California and took it everywhere along the coast. So I think these guys are in a tough situation because of that blatant lie that they said, Paul, basically discounting all these people who are out there fighting for, against second-class citizenry. So I just wanted to share this with you. I don't know if you saw any of this, but these are our volunteers, our campaign infrastructure. There's people making their own stuff, Paul, because we've open sourced all of our stuff. Mississippi, right? Montana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But people really need to see this. And this is a campaign that they want to hide, because our campaign is a real movement, bottoms up. Right. So I think it's really extraordinary, all these people, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out there. These are people making up their own sign, Paul. This is down in Tennessee. So it's truck driver, down in Texas, Utah, people are setting up these kinds of things. This is out at a major protest, but it's quite extraordinary. And here's Wyoming, right? Which they want to deny us from getting on the ballot when people want me on the ballot. Right. So I thought you might like to see that.
Yes. Yeah, that's impressive. You got a very good organization.
So anyway, Paul, I appreciate your coming on. I know you have family, but any other key points, Paul, you want to summarize? Because we have about close to 2,000 people here listening live.
Well, I just, I wish you luck. I hope this judge reads your brief Sometimes the judges don't even bother to read they've already made up their mind and they do what they're going to do. Let's hope that the judge actually reads your brief and sees the light of reason and, you know, sides with you. And hopefully, you know, I understand it's a woman, so I hope she will.
Yeah, it's interesting. This woman, they suddenly switched. She's a woman of Pakistani American origin. It was in the Senate was 50-50 for her to be appointed a federal judge. And Kamala Harris apparently had to throw the final vote. So this could be a total setup, you know, bring a, you know.
Yeah, often when they switch judges, it's deliberate. And it's for a 50 thing. In fact, I'll tell you again, I know we're almost out of time, but I have seen this before. They will switch judges, and what they will do is it's not exactly that it's fixed, but it is kind of fixed, because they'll be like, well, we know how Judge Smith will rule on this issue. We know how Judge Jones will rule on this issue. Well, let's give it to Judge Smith because we know how Judge Smith is going to rule. So it's not like they're paying Judge Smith to rule a certain way. But if they know Judge Smith in the past has ruled in a certain way, then you give that case to Judge Smith as opposed to Judge Jones, and you know how the case is coming out.
So why do you think they switched it, Paul? They had a judge.
I don't know, because I don't know this judge, and I haven't worked in the D.C. circuit, so I'm just saying in the past I have seen this. Whether it's in your case, I can't say. I hope it's not, but I'm saying I have seen in the past. I have seen cases where they will reassign a different judge, where a judge is you know, friendly to one side or the other, and then the powers that be, you know, the presiding judge decides, well, I don't like the way this case is going. Let's give it to the other judge. And then things all of a sudden they switch 180 degrees. So I've definitely seen that happen. I hope it's not your case. I don't know enough about this judge in your case to say, but I'm just saying it's certainly something, you know, people should be aware of. It's not, you know, it's supposed to be neutral. Judges are supposed to be assigned arbitrarily, but you know, again, from my experience, I don't think that's the way it actually works.
Well, I think, Paul, what's interesting is, you know, I've learned enough representing myself in court, and I always say this, is we're not focused on the outcome. We're focused on recognizing that we have to build a movement anyway. To the extent that they'll rule in our favor will be if they get potentially the fear of God put into them, that there's a lot of eyeballs watching this. And even then, they don't care, you know? But the issue is,
if there's enough people watching, again, this is why the Supreme Court is actually much better usually, because there's a lot of people watching. They can't sweep stuff under the rug. They know that 1 million people are going to read their decision. So they can't say stupid, ridiculous things. They can't ignore the evidence. But on the district court, they can, because if no one's going to read it, a couple of people maybe, but let's just do whatever we want. Nobody's going to care. So again, that's the challenge. So if you've got a movement, if the judge knows that millions of people are going to read the decision, then, you know, you're holding the judge's feet to the fire. They can't just make it up as they go along. They have to actually, you know, do something that's sensible, or they're going to be embarrassed and everyone's going to look at it. So that's an important factor.
Well, I'm going to be doing videos on this probably every other day, Paul, you know, going through the lawsuit, educating people, you know, the arguments, what's really going on. But fundamentally, this is against the Constitution. Only Congress can disqualify. And the second thing is, it's about a bottoms-up movement, and it's illegal discrimination and illegal disqualification if they do any of this, which they've already done in Wyoming. So, all right, Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate that perspective, huh?
Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry we went a little late. I hope we didn't. Okay, thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thanks.
Yep.
So that's Paul Clark, everyone. I want to thank Paul for coming on and giving his perspective. But the bottom line is this, everyone. Our movement, the Movement for Truth, Freedom, and Health, is a true bottoms-up movement. We have hundreds of thousands of volunteers, and every one of you should participate in this, because this is truly a movement by the people, for the people. And our campaign is basically resoundingly saying that we need to go back to this fundamental issue that it is the people who decide what's ultimately right for all of us. So if the people want me on the ballot, no stupid bureaucrat, no little dweeb somewhere should be sending me letters, you know, imposing some qualifications on me that are irrelevant. Because when people want me on the ballot and we've gotten signatures, well, to hell with you. So Wyoming has a serious problem, okay? Because some little dweeb thinks he's going to stop us. In Utah, we got all the signatures. We have all the paperwork saying you qualified. Now they want to try to pull something. This is unacceptable. This is no different. I can just tell you, when I was a kid, you guys know the story potentially. You may have heard of it. I was a low caste Indian, which I didn't even know what that was as a 4-year-old. And I tried to go into my friend's home, and he invited me in, and his mom said, "You can't come here." So I could go to all the other homes, but I can't go to his house because I'm a low caste non-Brahmin. So that's what I feel like. I can create email, I can start companies, I can do this, I can contribute a lot to America, but I cannot go to run for president. That's like, you're the field slave. That's the plantation that you're not allowed on, okay? Or you can't go into that house. That's absolute discrimination, and that is un-American. And no one can say, well, be happy, you get all these other rights, but you don't get that. That's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the American people who are missing out on the other 32 million Americans who are naturalized citizens. Think about this other situation. Some kid is born in the United States, and let's say 3 months of age, his parents moved to France. He gets brought up there. And then 42 years later, he comes back to the United States and he runs for president. Okay, so he's allowed to do that. He never was in the United States. It just so happens he hit the birth lottery, never contributed to this country, never did anything, but can come back at the age of 42 and run. Take the alternative. I come here when I'm 3 months old, grow up here, contribute to America. I'm loyal to America. By the way, a naturalized citizen has to take an oath, and it's an oath of allegiance. Quote unquote, natural born citizens do not have to take that oath. So the oath that I had to take is equivalent to the oath that a senator or public officials need to take. Natural born citizens don't even need to take that oath. So from a loyalty perspective, naturalized citizens have to show far greater loyalty and take an oath on it than even a natural born citizen. So this is absolutely discriminatory, and it has to end. But the larger issues, we're all immigrants of background, direct or otherwise. Whether you're Italian, whether you're American, whether you're of all different backgrounds, people came from other countries. Some forcibly, like the unfortunate situation with African Americans, and some by choice. But nonetheless, all of us are immigrants. It is immigrants and working people who build this country. And to say that one class of people cannot run for president and should be disqualified off states' ballots is not only acceptable, but now with the Trump versus Anderson ruling, it is actually illegal. So I want to encourage everyone, number one, to get involved in our campaign. Go to shivaforpresident.com. You can volunteer if you want to give us money. Know that when you give us stuff, I give you back lots and lots of things. We give you courses, we give you books. We want to educate you on how to become a fighter and a warrior scholar. So get involved. We are building a bottoms-up movement. And this movement is about us. It's about rededicating ourselves to we the people and why we need to build a very, very active citizenry. So get involved, get involved, get involved. Go to Shiva for President. Get one of those bumper stickers over there. Okay, put it on the back windshield of your car. If you want to donate to our campaign, we'll obviously be very grateful. We run this all by volunteers. We're not spending hundreds of millions, but on random stuff. Everything you see here, this lawsuit was done by me and our volunteers. We are truly a bottoms-up movement. We don't waste people's money. We live in a very frugal way like all of us do, but we are a movement by the people, for the people. Here's our campaign video, and I'll be back with a couple of final comments.
Who would have ever thought I'd be running for president of the United States of America? I was born a low-caste untouchable in India's caste system, a system of aristocracy, oppression, and racism. My name is Dr.SHIVA Ayyadurai. I'm an MIT PhD, a Fulbright scholar, a scientist, engineer, entrepreneur, and inventor. My family and I left India to come to America on my 7th birthday. I grew up in the working-class neighborhoods of New Jersey, playing baseball, mowing lawns, painting houses, and coding software. My friends and neighbors are blacks, Italians, Irish, people of all races. As a 14-year-old, I wrote 50,000 lines of software code to create the world's first email system, and was awarded the first U.S. copyright for email recognizing me as its official inventor at a time when copyright was the only way to protect software inventions. I did that long before I ever came to MIT, revealing that big innovations can occur anytime, any place by anybody. Growing up, I saw politicians dividing us by race and religion in both America and India, to have us fighting each other while they remained safe in their gated communities and in their playgrounds of Hollywood, Martha's Vineyard, and Silicon Valley. I'm a fighter. I fought racism and exposed their imperialist wars, fought for workers and put my life on the line against global corruption. I never wanted to run for political office. All that changed when I saw working Americans as never before being duped by the establishment and the not-so-obvious establishment. Across left and right, we were being sold out and made to forget why we came to America and why America existed. Lawyers, academics, billionaires, celebrities, and politicians, elites, Clintons, Kennedys, Bidens, Obamas, Bushes, black and white have hijacked America. They printed trillions for their friends. They delivered crumbling infrastructure, corruption, and racism. They've transferred trillions to themselves, dividing black and white, fear-mongering, and fake science. Lockdowns and censorship, dirty air, food, and water, pushing drugs upon us, making us sicker. We've been sold out. One set of rules for them and another for us. We deserve a warrior with a history of courage in putting everything on the line for you, who believes in you, not them, who has created a movement bottoms up for truth, freedom, health. I've exposed their lies at the right time, never waiting until it was popular. I've exposed their false gods who exist to lead you back to them. I've exposed their fake science of lockdowns and masking and provided you solutions to fight them and win and protect your immune system, saving millions. I exposed Fauci, galvanized the Fire Fauci campaign when others remained silent. When they stole our election, we sued the government and Twitter in our historic 2020 federal lawsuit, exposing in bare view the government and big tech censorship infrastructure, the unholy alliance between government and social media companies. Where was Elon and his grifters? They stood by the sidelines and did nothing. They did not use their megaphones to help us when it could have made a big difference. Now our movement grows for truth, freedom, health, independent of all of them. Every day millions are learning the science of systems, the knowledge the elites do not want you to have, so you may learn how to think, stand up, and fight, independent of the establishment of left and right and their fake heroes. Now it's time for you to join the movement, to win back America, to win back truth, win back freedom, win back your health. That's why I'm running for President of the United States. This race is about you. This race is about truth, freedom, health versus power, profit, control. We've had enough. They think we'll fall in line and vote again for their lawyers, celebrities, billionaires, and chosen ones from above. We choose our heroes from below, from the rank and file, who do what is right at the right time, not when it's convenient and popular. They can never represent us. What America needs is a movement by the working people, for the working people, who are educated, organized, decentralized, and fight for independence from their systems of control. And that movement exists. It's ready for you. We don't need them. We need us to go bottoms up, neighbor to neighbor. My journey, your journey are all the same. It's our time. It's time we had one of us. It's time to win back truth, freedom, health, to win back America. Be part of this historic movement, all the way to our victory on November 5th, 2024. If you're an American citizen, pledge your vote now for Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, the independent candidate for U.S. President. No matter where you live, you can be a part of this. Volunteer as little as 20 minutes a day. Don't delay. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, and I approve this message, paid for by Dr. Shiva for President.
All right, everyone, get involved, get involved, get involved. I want to encourage you all to go to our website. If you go to our website right here, shivaforpresident.com, you can go right to that donation form. And when you donate to us, we give you all sorts of books, bumper stickers, books, etc. And if you don't want to donate, you can volunteer. Go to our volunteer page and volunteer, because we need people to help us get ballot signatures, right? You can help make phone calls, you can do door knocking, you can do all sorts of fun stuff. But most importantly, you'll meet some amazing people. Also go here and get some of the free downloads. You can print out our flyers, hand them out. You can even print out our cards, our bumper stickers. We've open sourced this. You can make your own lawn signs. Okay, you can order them from us, but we have put up the high resolution graphics here for you to go do it on your own. So get involved. This is your campaign, but this is fundamentally about the fact that we deserve people who are actually truly loyal to this country and actually want change, not people who are born with a silver spoon, or just because they were born here, take the United States for granted. So that's what this is about. So get involved. And I want to thank everyone who's been helping us over the last week, but it's for the last 5 days, it's been probably about a couple of hours of sleep. As I shared with you, putting this lawsuit together, I did it on my own, but with the help of our volunteers to help with a lot of data gathering. It is an immense amount of work. So I want to thank our volunteers like Emily Cross, like Crystal Ellis, all of our volunteers, hundreds of thousands of people all over the country who helped us, put all this material together. This is about 140 pages, but these are our volunteers everywhere. So the Attorney General's office and the DC Board of Electors has said, we don't have a campaign, that we don't even exist. Are you serious? So these are our people. They're denying all these people who've been out there working hard, pushing our campaign, getting signatures, doing standouts, handing out flyers. All these people are being discriminated against by a bunch of lying bureaucrats. Our campaign is real, it exists, and we're the only force right now on this planet which really represents the movement for truth, freedom, and health in our campaign in the United States, that really represents everyday working people. These are all working people. These are not paid hacks, political hacks. Maria Canister, I want to thank her a lot. All these people, okay, who've been out there on the ground, making sure the world knows we exist because of all the social media shadow banning, as many of you know, also takes place against our campaign. All right. So everyone get involved, get involved, get involved. A lot of work went into this. It's another PhD thesis. Okay. So get involved, because you're never going to have someone who fights as hard as I do, or our movement does. So anyway, be well, be the light. And as I close here, I'm just, I should have started with this. I'm going to play this and then we'll come right back. Everyone, remember, every Thursdays we have our town hall. Tomorrow we have one coming up. All of you are invited. So get involved, get involved, get involved. Okay, go to vashiva.com/orientation or shivaforpresident.com/town hall. Anyway, I'm glad you guys are all up to date of what we're doing, and I hope this is valuable. Be well. We need to build a bottoms-up movement. Go to shivaforpresident.com and volunteer.